And I'll say it again loud and clear. As president, I'll use my executive powers to combat the climate crisis in the absence of congressional action. That's why today I'm making the largest investment ever, $2.3 billion, to help communities across the country build infrastructure that's designed to withstand the full range of disasters we've been seeing up to today. Extreme heat, drought, flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes.
That was President Biden just moments ago at a now closed Brayton Point power plant in Massachusetts, which is now being turned into the Commonwealth's first offshore wind power facility. Joining us now with more on this, also the latest out of Washington, we want to bring in California Congressman Khanna. Representative, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on.
So we just heard from President Biden laying out new climate change programs, but he did stop short of declaring a national emergency on climate, although leaving on the table that he, quote, will use emergency power if he needs to. I know climate change and climate policy is a priority of yours. What's your reaction to what we just heard from the president?
He needs to declare a climate emergency. I mean, I'm glad that he's highlighting what he's doing, but we need to do more. The declaration of a climate emergency will give him the authority to put more funds into solar, wind, renewables. It will give him the authority to stop the permitting for projects that are going to emit tremendous amounts of CO2. So he needs to make that declaration.
Is this the right time to declare a climate emergency given the all-time high in gas prices? I know they are down 30-plus days, but that is breaking the backs of Americans.
It is, because there are other things we can do to lower gas prices. Three things we could do is ban the export of oil and gas, except to our allies. We could have an oil windfall profits tax and put that money back in the pockets of working class folks. And I've suggested months ago that the federal government should be buying at the dip and then selling back at a subsidized price. If the president took those actions, we could lower the price of gas. Separately, he needs to take a bold climate action. And a lot of that is just funding solar and wind, which he'll be able to do if he has the climate emergency. Remember, Trump declared the emergency on the border. I certainly think climate is an emergency.
And what would you say to the argument that, say, funding should go towards drilling more as people need more oil, they need more gasoline right now, versus, say, investing in climate, which perhaps people think that they might not see the benefits of right away?
Well, the drilling takes years, so that's not going to do anything to bring down prices right away. And if you really want to bring down price right away, I think doing the things I suggested, stop exporting it. By the way, if we're drilling and just exporting it, it's not going to help the U.S. price either. So stop the exports and have the federal government put more out through the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. They could buy more into it at the dip and put more of that out. That would bring down the price.
And Representative, I know gas prices is a huge part here when we're talking about inflation, but I want to bring up a New York Times op-ed that you wrote in early June. And in that, one of the first lines you wrote was that I support the president's efforts, but we need a bolder vision and faster action. You just laid out a few things that can be done to lower gas prices. But more broadly speaking, has the president gotten more aggressive from your view? And what do you and some of your constituents want to hear from the president in order to lower inflation?
Well, he has gotten more aggressive, but we could do more. For example, the baby formula that he has importing into the country. I mean, that has only been about 1 week of baby formula supply. There's still a shortage. Why can't we just say if it's safe for babies in Europe, it's safe for babies here? Why can't we have the federal government actually purchasing that baby formula to bring it here? Why not fund the manufacturing of it other than in the plant that has had all the problems? On food, we could be purchasing the food and supplying it or putting it, selling it back to Americans at a cheap price. I just think we have to be out of the box, bolder, and recognize that right now the central thing on people's minds is food prices, gas prices, shortages of things like baby formula. On airlines, we can be doing more. I mean, the fact that airlines are canceling and that we haven't taken any steps to penalize them is wrong.
What should we do to penalize them? There have been some theories floated out there, including the likes of Bernie Sanders, that suggest fines, Congressman, and I'm sure you've seen them, that would, quite frankly, hamper, if not bankrupt, some of our airlines.
Well, I'm not going to suggest a number, but we should do what President Obama did. I mean, President Obama said very clearly that if there were certain things that were not met, then there would be consequences, and penalties and fines were part of that. But you can have the fines and penalties at a level that isn't going to bankrupt them. But right now, you've got a Department of Transportation that hasn't done anything. If flights are being canceled, and I'm actually talking to constituents who are having to stay 7, 8 hours at the airport, and it's not good enough to just tell them, okay, here's how you get a refund for that. What we need to do is make it clear to the airlines that that's unacceptable. Again, this never happened under President Obama's 8 years. He had a more aggressive Department of Transportation that did have consequences.
And I want to shift gears now and talk about the CHIPS Act, obviously clearly in focus, and we saw that that became more in focus during the pandemic as supply chains were disrupted. Talk about what's at stake here if this doesn't get passed, and not just for U.S. manufacturing, but also the jobs that could potentially be attached to them.
This is one of the biggest investments in the new industrialization of America. I mean, there are $20 billion that is going to be invested in Columbus, Ohio, 7,000 jobs, and many more to come. Jobs not just for software engineers, jobs for pipe fitters, for construction workers, for manufacturing workers, many that don't require a college degree. I want semiconductors made in the United States, not in Taiwan, not in South Korea, not in China. And this is what will allow that to happen, and it's going to put an investment in the new technologies of the future. I'm confident it'll pass the Senate, and I helped co-lead the innovation bill with Senator Schumer and working to make sure we have the votes in the House.